Hi, my name is Jake. Now let's talk music. Alright, so today is November 22nd, and it's the 14-year anniversary of one of my favorite albums, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. And at first, I had a different video that was gonna come out today, but I scheduled it to come out tomorrow. It's the King of the Mischievous South 2 Deluxe reaction. So, just today, I wanted to talk about this album. It's one of the most important albums to come out in like the history of hip hop. So, yeah. Uh, so, there's some background information. Like, before like even getting to this album, we gotta start at the 2009 VMA Awards, where while Taylor Swift was accepting her award, Kanye went on stage and pretty much just said that she shouldn't have won, and Beyonce had the best music video. Like, pretty much that's the breakdown of it. I'm not gonna say exactly what was said or whatever, but I can say that yes, this was a bad situation, but Kanye wasn't in the right headspace. As many have said that were there that night, you seen him walking around everywhere with Amber Rose, and on his other hand, he had a bottle of Hennessy, which when it got to the time of him going up on stage, people had said that it was like over halfway gone. So he's not in the right headspace, and then he goes up there and makes a fool of himself. Like, it was a bad situation, and it it really made him rethink everything he was doing in life, like his situation. And at this point, he was just about to start a world tour with Lady Gaga, but with everything going on in the press and all the headlines coming out about him, they both decided that it would just be better to cancel this, like not go forward with the tour. And then after this, it was like, I think it was like around October, November of 2009. He went and talked to one of his best friends, Most Def, and only thing Most Def told him, you need to get out of the country. You need to exile yourself away from this. And that's what Kanye did. He ended up going to Japan for a little bit, and then eventually, like, main reason why he went to Japan, like paparazzi isn't allowed there, so they that was the big reason why he went there. And then after like a month there, he moved to Rome, and he just, while he was there, he had no interest in making music ever again. Like, he told multiple people, like, I'm done making music, I'm focusing on fashion. And that's why he went to Rome. Like, Rome is one of the biggest places in fashion, like Fendi and other places. Like, that's why he went to Rome. But while still in Rome, it wasn't just, okay, he's doing fashion. He also studied like the art, the music, the culture of this place. Like, everything that made like Europe so luxurious and so great. Like, he sat and studied, and just, it really meant a lot to him. And it was finally time. He was like, you know what? I can't just hide away from this. I'm gonna start making music again, because he has such a love for music that he can't just he can't just stop. So what he ended up doing right before the end of 2009, he moved to Oahu, Hawaii, where he spent the next around 6 months there, and he started working on his album. Which, first things first with this album, like, he had this whole idea where he was gonna have a 4-part college series, which I've talked about this multiple times on this channel. It was gonna go college dropout, late registration, graduation, and good ass job. But at first, that's what people thought he was going to be putting out, like, while he's working on music here in Hawaii. But honestly, the biggest thing that made good ass job never come out was 808s and Heartbreaks. Like, with the passing of his mother, and also like the breakup with his then fiance, it he then made 808s and Heartbreaks, and he just decided, you know what, I broke up the like continuity of this, so let's just stop it at the three and let's try something else. And that he did. Like, the music from My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy is so different from anything he had ever made before then. Like, you could tell from the grandness, but there's also like darkness within. Like, some of the different uh God, what's the name of it? Samples? Yeah, I'll say samples. That's the word that comes to mind right now. Some of the samples that he used were so dark and so like decidedly different from anything that he ever did before. He wanted to move away from that kind of music. And you started seeing it. It was like dark fantasy, so appalled, gorgeous, uh, even a hell of a life. Like, all these songs, they have darker, like, samples. I mean, a hell of a life. It sampled Black Sabbath of all people. So yeah, it truly showed like a change in his music, and honestly, it's one of his best albums that he's ever put out, and one of the most uh God, I keep forgetting the words I want to say. Like, most influential albums in hip hop because of the grand feel and how everything just, it was so luxurious. And it really started a new form of rap where everyone's just flexing and talking about what they got, how it it really was. And honestly, it was just a whole other subgenre that came out because of Kanye. um so I'm getting ahead of myself. So he he moved to Hawaii, and what he did was he booked Avex Studios for 24 hours every single day. Like, but what happened was he didn't spend 24 hours there every single day. That would be crazy. But he wanted to like make a super professional, like, this, we're going in, we're doing this like this. All right, we're going to be professional about the way we do this. And also, he made sure that everything they did it together. So they would wake up and have breakfast together. And one of the things that they talked about during breakfast, they only talked about three things: what they did yesterday, what they were going to do today, and what they were going to do tomorrow. Like, it was just so focused on this music and making sure that everything was perfect. And that's why this is seen as his best album. Like, I still think that Graduation is his best album, but all the work that he put into this album and how professional it just felt like it can't get better than this. So that that's pretty much what he did. They all stayed together. They ate breakfast together. They worked out together. Like even they would play basketball together, like at the YMCA. Like they didn't do anything separate. They all moved in the same pack together, doing everything. And then from 4 p.m. to 4 a.m., Kanye would stay in the studio 12 hours straight working on this music and making sure that it's the best thing that anyone has ever heard. It it truly showed how dedicated he is as an artist and how much he cares about music. Another thing to like express the professionalism, he would have everyone that went into the studio, you're wearing a black suit with a black tie, and there was no recording, no talking about the album, nothing. Only thing that would be talked about is if Kanye himself talked to the press. Other than that, nothing was said about the album until after it came out. Like it it was the perfect system. Like there were no spoilers, there wasn't anything like getting uh uh released without his say so. So it was the like perfect thing. Um yeah, I mean that's pretty much all I have about for the background of like the making of this album. Except for there's a couple of things, but I'll get to that after like my personal review, which, like I said, it's one of his best albums ever. I love this whole album. I would say it's my third favorite. I still love the college dropout so much. I just can't put this above it. Just the nostalgia from college dropout. Um, but yeah, when you're looking at both like the track list and the feature list, this might be the album with the best feature list ever. Like you get Nicki Minaj in her prime, you get Kid Cudi in his prime, you get Jay Z, you get Rick Ross, you get Sci-Hi the Prince, you get RZA, you get Raekwon, you get John Legend, you get Rihanna, you get uh, Elton John. God, uh, you even get Fergie, you get Drake, you get Alicia Keys, which that's one thing that I'm gonna talk about with all the lights in a little bit. Like everything that went on with that was amazing. But you get all of these amazing artists, and it just blends perfectly. Uh, he made the perfect features for every single song. I will say there is like one person on this album that I wish just wasn't a part of it, which I'll get to that when I start going like track by track. Which, why not? So let's start off with the intro, Dark Fantasy, and one of the best starts to an album that I can think of. Like at first, the song starts with Nicki Minaj just talking to these kids, or uh, I don't really know how to decipher it, but it pretty much sounds like she's well, she literally says, "Sit around, kids, zip it, listen," and then you get into this an angelic voice. It's like, can we get much higher? Like, you hit with that, the first like vocals you hear, it's it's beautiful. And then Kanye West does his thing. It just all around a great opening track. And up next you got Gorgeous, which another like I don't think there's a bad track on this album. I just don't. Then we get into Power, which Power was made in about 5,000 man hours. It took 5,000 hours to make Power. And you can hear it when you listen to it. Like, everything is so grand and just. I, I don't know. Just the production. Like, he even spent so much time on his lyrics. And, like, I love Kanye, but that's not one of, like, his best things is lyricism. Like, he has funny lyrics sometimes, but he's not one of the best lyricists in the game, is what I'm trying to say. But just listening to his verse, like sitting and reading everything he says, it's like everything was supposed to be said in the way he said it. He really perfected everything, and that's why he took so long to make this, and it was amazing. Uh, Next up, honestly, just this is one of my favorite like parts to listen to, is the All the Lights interlude. You just get this moment where Elton John is playing the piano, and I love All of the Lights, like the actual song, but I, nothing's better than listening to a song on piano. It it just sounds so much more majestic. Then we get into All the Lights, which there were over 14. No, it was just 14. It was just 14 different artists who allowed their vocals just to be used in the background. Like, they're like massive names in the music industry, and you would think, oh, they're gonna have their own like part by themselves. No, he mixes all 14 just to be background voices. You get people like Drake, Fergie, uh, I got like a whole list. Alicia Keys, John Legend, Kid Cudi, and Charlie Wilson. Like, that, all of those names plus more. Like, I don't remember all of them, but there's 14 of them there, and all of them are mixed together and do this whole background voice part, and it's just insane. Then you have Monster, which I, every time that song comes on, I laugh at the very first part because of Rick Ross's verse. It it's just always funny, but I can't lie. Nicki owns that song. Like, she did her thing. Like, she's rapping along the likes of Rick Ross, Kanye West, Jay Z, and she has the best verse. Uh, Next up, So Appalled. So I talked about Sci High the Prince earlier. There's like a whole story behind it where he was just supposed to do the hook. That's it. But while he's in the studio making the hook, he finishes the hook, and then he's like, "You know what? Take it to like the last couple seconds. I'm gonna add a verse on there." Like, Kanye isn't in the studio. Like, It's just him and the dude controlling the music. So he goes to the end of the track and spits a verse. Now nobody has heard this since he done it. So we go to the Power video shoot, like where Kanye West does the music video for Power. And there's Kanye, Jay-Z, Beyonce. They're all sitting down and he's like playing the whole album. They get to So Appalled and like they didn't stop the track. They're like playing through and it gets to what they thought was the end, and then all of a sudden Sci-Hi the Prince's verse starts playing. After it finishes, Beyonce looks to them and says, "Whoever that is, you better sign him." Like it was that good. And Kanye ended up signing Sci-Hi the Prince, and it's just a great story. Next up, probably my favorite track from this whole album, "Devil in a New Dress." Like, I when I first listened to this, I thought, "Oh my god, Kanye's doing such a great job! Like, this is amazing." Then you just got the point where the instrumentals playing. I'm like, it's getting to the end. Okay, I wish it was longer. I literally said I wished it was longer, but still a great verse by Kanye. And then Rick Ross starts rapping. I'm like, oh my god. Like, this is the best verse that Rick Ross has ever made in his life. Like, it it was just so amazing. Like, everything about that track, it was great. Then on the ninth track, we get the track that everybody knows. Like, it's probably no, it's definitely the biggest off of this out. Oh wait, no, Power. Second biggest off this album, which Runaway, it is so beautiful. Like, I remember the first time that I seen Kanye play this live. I wasn't there. I seen a video on YouTube. It Oh my god. Like, just on the machine, just and it he just starts playing it out loud. I'm like, oh my god. I've listened to it so many times, like on Spotify, but the second that I seen him do it live, I was like, this makes it so much better. Like, it I have no words. It was beautiful. And then another story with like this track. Uh, so Pusha T is featured on this track, and he usually does like one writing of a verse and does it super simple. He never has to rewrite. But Kanye went to him. It was like, this is a great verse, but what I want you to do, I want you to rewrite it and like make it sound like you're like the worst guy in the world who is so self-indulged in himself. And that's what you get. You get Pusha T sounding like he he's only cares about himself, that he's so self-centered like during this whole relationship, and it just works beautifully along with everything that Kanye does. Like, there's a reason why Kanye is seen as the GOAT, and that's for moments like this. He knew what he wanted, and he told him, do this the way that I think it should, and we'll see how it sounds. makes one of the most beautiful songs ever. And then just the whole outro to the song where there was actually a video I seen where Kanye was in the studio like doing these vocals, and it doesn't have like the uh, audio distorting. Like he's saying every single word from the hook and from the part, but the distortion at the end of the track just it sounds so unintelligible, but he was saying every single word, which it's crazy to think about. Then we got Hell of a Life, which I talked about this earlier. It's the one where they sampled uh, Black Sabbath's Iron Man, which it it was the perfect sample for this. It was just dark, gritty, yet it just worked so perfectly within the song. And what actually ended up happening later this year, so everyone knows Vultures and everyone knows Carnival. What happened was they tried to get the sample pass to use Iron Man again for Carnival, but Black Sabbath, with everything that had been going on with Kanye, with his fascist remarks, which I can't blame Black Sabbath for it. They said, no, we're not clearing the sample for this. So, what Kanye did, since he already had the sample passed for Hell of a Life, he just sampled Hell of a Life, and it made Carnival sound better. It is just sounded better for the actual track. Uh, Other than that, I really don't have anything else to say about this track. Like, it's an amazing track, but it's one of the weaker tracks of the album, which that's crazy to say, even though it's an amazing track. Then we get to track 11, Blame Game, which, oh my god, I love this song. Like, everything about the song is great, but if I could have one part removed from this album, is Chris Rock's part at the very end. I We don't need that, bro. It just makes like sitting there for the last minute and a half, 2 minutes, so awkward listening to that whole thing. It I just don't like that part. But John Legend, his vocals are always gonna be amazing. And then it it truly was the end of everything that was was going on between Kanye and Amber Rose. This was like signaling the breakup between those two, which then works perfectly in the next song, track 12, Lost in the World. Lost in the World, just the production is insane. Like, it's probably my favorite production on the whole album, but I get the production from the other songs might be better, but this one's my favorite. Uh, just something about listening to the production on this song and the like story behind this is uh during Kanye's verse, he had like this whole instrumental and like everything figured out, but he didn't know what he wanted to say during his verse. So what ended up happening was he had wrote Kim Kardashian a letter, like a love letter, and what he did was he used the words from that letter and wove it into his verse. And I don't remember exactly which concert, but he was talking about the story behind this album, like behind this track. And at this point, they were married already. And he's like saying, the the verse that I wrote on this song had to do with a love letter that I wrote to my wife now, Kimberly, which I mean, even with Runaway, there's a version during his concert where he directed it straight to Kim. So, just everything that he does is on purpose, and it, it worked out perfectly on this album. Next up, like, I want to talk about the covers. Like, there are multiple covers that were made, which, uh, everyone knows the main cover and how it's pixelated out because the original wasn't very family friendly. Let's say that. But pretty much what it is, it's an interracial couple where the black guy is supposed to be Kanye and the white girl is a phoenix who has no arms and is completely naked on top of Kanye West. So there was a reason why it got censored and had to be pixelated. I get that. But there are other covers which there were five total covers done, but I could only get the story behind one other of the covers, like the making of it, which that was the ballerina cover. And what happened was, George Condo was the guy who made all these different covers, and what he did for that one is him and Kanye, they're sitting and they're listening to the album, and it gets to the song Runaway, which they're singing and listening to this, and then George's wife, Anna, it's either Anna or Anna, I don't know how she says it, but she comes in and shows Kanye this video of a famous French dancer. It was Sylvie Gilliam. I don't know how to say it, but it's just her dancing in slow motion, which it was it was a great video and all, but like it was just random at that point. But what ended up happening was, sorry, uh, Kanye looks over to Kondo and he's like, "You know what I want? I want a I want a great painting of a ballerina." And they sit there for a second. He was like, "Make it where the ballerina's holding a glass." Like, uh, here's what he said word for word. Uh, he said he wanted a great ballerina painting. Then he said, "I thought of a ballerina toasting. You know, let's toast to the scumbags," which was a lyric from Runaway. So George Condo then made the cover, and it actually, like, the whole ballerina aesthetic was woven into the Runaway music video, where there's all the ballerinas during the music video. But yeah, it all came together perfectly. Uh, Trying to think, is there? Oh, uh, the one I forgot about actually. Uh, I do have another story. Uh, so that's only two of the five covers. The other cover was this like face with multiple mouths. It's like uh, it's an art of cubism, kind of. But the story behind that was, let me see exactly what I put down. Oh, it was it was a portrait of Kanye West. Like him and uh, George Condo, they're singing in the um, studio together, and he's like sitting there, he's listening to everything, and he's like, you know what I want to do? How about you come back tomorrow, sit down, and I can make a portrait of you? And that's what they did. Next day, they both sit down. He starts painting the portrait, and it ends up being this cubism like face of Kanye. And it, it's a great cover, but honestly, it's not my favorite. Honestly, my favorite is the other one that I saw. I've only seen four of the five. I couldn't find the fifth one, but it's the one where there's the severed head wearing a crown with a sword, like stuck into the head. There for a while, it was my phone screen, my wallpaper. But yeah, that one's probably my favorite cover. But for the symbolism and everything behind it, I like the ballerina one because just everything that happened because of that. It was great. Um, I can't think of anything else. This is already a really long video, so I just want to say I really love this album, and Kanye is one of my favorite artists of all time. So it it just made sense why this album meant so much to me, and it's one of the most influential albums of all time. Like that's what Kanye does. He makes super influential music. I mean, you think of College Dropout, that started the Chipmunk Soul, and like it started where it started moving away from gangster rap. Then you get Late Registration, same thing there. Graduation, it started like stadium tours, and also it pretty much killed off gangster rap. Then you get 808s and Heartbreaks, like one of the most influential albums of our generation. Without that, we don't get The Weeknd, we don't get Drake, we don't get Travis Scott, like all of these different artists that bit off of that style from 808s, and also the what's it called, autotune. Like all of this, we don't have that. Then there's this album. Um, the next album he made was Watch the Throne, which it's the same thing, but it's a collab album, and it's still super luxurious and flexing a lot, which it really just gave into like rap where they start flexing and talking about what they own and how much better they are. It's not a great subgenre, but it's still a subgenre that came out because of the influence of Kanye West. I mean, even something like Yeezus. Like, at first, nobody understood what he was going for there, but the gritty production truly just uh, it started its own genre of rap. Like I don't know what else to say. It's just every like it seemed like every single project he put out influenced a portion of rap to come out. So yeah, I honestly I just I love Kanye, and I hope he redeems himself because 2024 was a bad year for Kanye. Like the Vulture series, everything coming out about the nitrous incidents. Like, it finally looks like he's starting to get back to normal. He's working on a new solo project, and he actually looks like himself again. So I hope Bully turns out to be really good. But yeah, till next time. Uh, Peace.